Everybody's so quiet this morning.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, are we that like enamored by the prospect of looking at Smartsheet? Anyway, good morning. We're live. Happy Friday. It's February 21st, 2020. We're in the thick of tax season. And Elena, where are you joining us from? Are you in Croatia?
Yep.
Wow. What time is it
It's
there?
5 p.m. 5 p.m.
5 p.m. Okay. Peter,
Yep.
what time is it by you in Ireland?
It's 4 p.m. in Ireland, yes.
Wow.
1 hour
Yeah.
ahead.
We are truly
Yeah.
global. We are
Yeah,
truly
worldwide.
world famous.
Sure.
I'm not kidding when I talk about the world famous Nerd Enterprises.
Yeah.
So special shout out this morning to WagePoint. Thank you for the article, for mentioning our group. We've gotten an influx of people requesting to join the Between Wall and Main Facebook group because of that article. It's funny
Jennifer,
how...
where are you joining from?
Who? What? Greg?
I was wondering where Jennifer was from.
She's in Mexico.
I'm in Mexico. Oh, I'm from California, but I'm in Mexico. So yeah, we're
Right.
global.
So we've got
We've got Mexico,
four
Ireland,
different
Croatia.
countries represented at least
Yeah,
right now.
and Dennis is in the country of Seattle.
And I work for Canadians, so maybe that counts as like four
Right.
countries, right?
And you have Serbia present as well. Biljana is from Serbia. So
Who is?
Biljana, Tepša.
Oh, that's right. We have people who are not, whose videos aren't on, who are still in the group here. That's right. That's right. I noticed that from the email address. I said she works with Yelena.
Yep.
Very good. Cool. So we truly are multinational, global, and all that good stuff. Well, happy Friday. And today we're going to take a look at some of the latest and greatest from Smartsheet. It's been a long time since we looked at it. And I built out a few projects with it recently for some clients. So I'm going to go over some of these use cases, one of which is something we looked at a while back in two other products. So now we're going to look at the comparable, and it'll make sense when I get there. I know I'm sort of purposely not telling you what, but we'll get there. I'm going to show you some use cases, in other words, that we're familiar with, that we've gone over before with different products, but why Smartsheet may be a compelling alternative. And just to kind of go back to what Jennifer was asking before we officially went live, because I know others are going to have the same questions because they're good questions. Is this going to replace Airtable, or could it replace ClickUp? And the answer is yes, it could, but it doesn't have to, right? There are, to me, there are benefits of sort of learning and understanding how to use all of these products, because as I was explaining to Jennifer, there are going to be use cases where while there's a lot of overlap, it's going to become clear that one product is going to be superior to the others for that particular use case, right? Like I was saying with Airtable, as soon as I have to group things, Airtable has that grouping capability that no other product has, right? It has its own like sort of pivot table function. And then more generally, if it's really managing a database that you need done in whatever the use case is, then Airtable is probably going to be the best choice. Smartsheet is going to be great for collaborating with clients because it's got that spreadsheet like look and feel to it that they're going to be familiar with, because most people these days are familiar with the spreadsheet. And Smartsheet also has a lot of really cool, powerful stuff under the hood, which is part of what we're going to be looking at today, or I should say what we're going to be looking at today is part of that. But Smartsheet is going to require a lot more customization to build it out to do whatever it is you want to do. And then if you're looking at project management solutions, our sort of group favorite, I think it's fair to say, has become ClickUp. And ClickUp is, if you want just an out-of-the-box solution that's made for project management, and that's also actually pretty customizable, then ClickUp has become our sort of product of choice, generally speaking, for project management. But I use them all. I use them all for different reasons and for different use cases, and I like knowing them all. It's, I joke around a bit about how if imagine if I were to hire a handyman, or maybe it's more politically correct these days to say a handy person. If I hire them to come over to my house and do a job, they're going to want to have lots of different tools, because depending on what I specifically ask them to do around my house, there's going to be different tools that are going to be right for the job. And so it's the same thing here with these digital tools, right? The way I look at this is I don't get overwhelmed. I guarantee you, if I go to a handy person and say, hey, here's this new tool that somebody just made, and it's really good because it does X, Y, and Z, they're probably going to get excited and start thinking in terms of the different projects they can take on, the different jobs they can do now that they have this new tool. That's how I look at all these different apps is, what could I accomplish now that I have this other app, and now that I'm starting to understand what it can do really well, where are its limitations. To me, it's worth taking the time and even getting excited about learning these apps so that I can, always think around a situation when a prospect comes in my door and presents a problem to me. Right? My job is to think about what is their pain and what's the best way to take that pain away from them, right? And in order to do that, I'm gonna want to have an arsenal of tools at my disposal so I can really think in terms of the best, most efficient way, to take their pain away. So that's what I want people to think about when they start thinking, oh, we're back to Smartsheet. No, we never left Smartsheet, right? That's the point. But Smartsheet has made some great innovations. They've built out a very Zapier-like automations area that works, of course, only within Smartsheet. So that's what I really want to show everybody today. And of course, the best way to illustrate these kinds of things is to have specific use cases for them. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and bring up my Smartsheet workspaces. And I will share my screen. Don't worry, I'm not there yet. Okay, so the first thing I want to do actually is because this addresses another bigger picture issue that comes up with a lot of us from what I see just from the questions people ask online and such, is how to get information from a client, right? I know a lot of people struggle with that, and we talk about it a lot in 97 and up, and I see a lot of people asking the questions about it in the various Facebook groups, including our own Between Wall and Main. And so how do we make sure that we can get the information we need from our clients quickly, timely? Because what happens when we don't get the information, it may even well be the client's fault. They didn't get us what we needed, but the client's still going to come back to us and say, why isn't the work done? Why isn't it getting done on time? And you can very legitimately and justifiably tell them, well, you didn't give me what I needed. But quite frankly, the clients don't want to hear that. They're going to want to, because they're going to come back to that and say, well, you didn't remind me enough, right? So one thing I do to address that before we get into any tools is I do everything I can to sort of insist that the client empower me to get the access I need to whatever I need, right? So give me read-only logins to your bank and credit card account so I can get the statements I need so I can reconcile what I need when I need it, and I don't have to wait for the client to get that to me, right? Any other logins that they can provide me. And we have a Smartsheet project for that. I've gone over this. I call it the reference sheet. See how it says for client passwords, et cetera. And so, this is something where in the onboarding process, I'll set it up and I'll track, because I'll go through their QuickBooks company and figure out what, I'll do a monthly expenses by vendor summary report. And that can show me very quickly what are all the services they're paying month in and month out. And so I usually use that as a starting point to put together a list of things I need access to, right? But more generally, what I want to start looking at is a general kind of request for info, right? So here's a request for information project. Very, very simple. Item needed, request date, due date, and who's it assigned to, right? So very simple project, just to get us started and just to get our feet wet with what I really want to show you. These are simple columns. This is the primary column is the item needed, so it's limited in terms of the different types. But anything else, this is the request date is obviously a date-based column. The due date, also a date-based column, right? And then assigned to is going to be a contact-based column. So anybody who this is shared with, I'm going to add Greg to this. Greg is going to be my client today. Greg, you with me?
I'll always be your dummy.
Nice. Perfect. So this way I can assign things to Greg. I want to add another column here, and it's going to be, we're going to call it completed date. Right, so of course that's also going to be date-based. You could also do this as a checkbox, and I used to do that, but then over time I thought it would be good information to have to know, not just that it was completed, but when, right? So why not make that another date-based column? Because this way I can, like I said, I know if it's completed or not just by the fact that there's either a date in here or there isn't, right? If it's blank, it's not completed yet. If it's got a date, it's been completed. but then I can also see when it was completed. And I can start analyzing and saying, well, we requested it this day. We said we needed it by this day, and here's when it actually got done. You know, we can start seeing, are we running into an issue? Is there a typical lag in terms of the due date versus when we actually are able to get it done? Okay. So now we're ready to start creating an automation, because what do I want to do? First of all, as soon as I assign this to somebody, so let's come up with an item needed, bank statement logins, right? Let's just call it that. Okay, and let's say the request date is today, and let's say the due date is going to be, I want it by next Friday. You know, I want all this done within a week. I'm going to assign this to Greg. Where'd you go? There you are. Okay, and then I'm going to save it. Now, before I save it, actually before I even assign it, let me back up, because I want to create the first automation. I want whoever it gets assigned to get a notification that they've been assigned a task. So we're going to click on automation up here. Okay, and the create a workflow is just the kind of very general start from a blank canvas and go, right? But they also have, you know, other kind of, you know, standard built-in, whatever you want to call it, type automations, right? So I can alert someone. So let's go with that. And all that really does is it creates the workflow, but it just fills it in with, you know, what you need to be able to alert somebody about something. So new task assigned is what we're going to call this. Okay, so when rows are added or changed, so we can go with that, and basically then when any field no, when assigned to changes to, let's just call it any value, and you're seeing names in here because I have this in my 97 and up workspace for Smartsheet. So run the workflow. You can do it when triggered, hourly, daily, weekly. This is important to pay attention to, because I may be working in the sheet and I may not want to do it when triggered, because I may be doing a bunch of things at once, and I don't want everybody in the project to start getting 100 email notifications. I may want to do something like this hourly, but for now I'll leave it as when triggered. Okay. We don't need a condition. Basically, we need to send it to a specific person, right? To send it to contacts in a cell. The contact field, there's only one that could apply, which is assigned to, right? And so it says some recipients may not get notified. Change your permission settings, right? So automated permissions, only users shared to the sheet. It's because Greg hasn't actually been shared to the sheet. So I'm going to leave that, save. I'm going to come back to this in a second. We're going to go share, and I just want to make sure Greg is in here. And we're going to make him an admin. And notice I could share just the sheet or the whole workspace. Okay, so now let's go back to the automations. Now that I've already started to create it, I'm going to go to manage workflows. Okay, and we're going to go back into the new task assigned. I'll edit. Okay, so now I know for sure, all I care about is making sure that Greg can get to this, right? And then I'm going to customize the message. You've got a job to do. So do it now, please. And save. Okay, now I'm going to close this. Always check the little save icon in Smartsheet. Some things are just saved automatically. Other things you have to hit the save button to make sure it's reflected. Okay. Greg. And okay. And now I'm going to hit save. And Greg should get the notification. Greg, check your email. You're muted.
Did you do it on change?
I did it when assigned. You got it?
No.
All right, let's go back and check. So yeah, it says when triggered. So when assigned to changes to any value, yeah, that should work. Maybe no, because I changed it. Let's try this. I'm going to copy it to a new row. Let's see if you get it now.
I've got a job to do.
All right, so that time it worked. It may be that for some reason because I'd already created the record. So now Greg can come in here, and by the way, if we're doing it like this, you know, we can invite people to upload the statements right here as attachments in Smartsheet, right? So this is a great way to make it easy for the client, right? That's one of the things I noticed. You know, and notice I got the notification now that lets me know Greg is now viewing this sheet. So Greg, I wonder if you can tell from the email which row number you got notified about. Was it row 1 or row 2?
It says row 1.
Okay, so you did get that one.
I wonder if it's just on a delay of some sort.
Yeah, it could be. So you might get row 2. So let's just call this credit card statements, just so we can distinguish. Right, so Greg can upload statements, or this actually what I asked for was logins. That I would usually have them put in the comments here. Now, of course, as we're talking about logins and putting them in Smartsheet, the obvious question everybody's going to ask is Smartsheet secure? And the answer is yes, Smartsheet is secure. They have all the security, and we were talking about this yesterday in 97 and up. If you want to learn and do your own homework, which you should if you're going to use an app, Google Smartsheet security. Okay, and you're usually going to find something. Look in the details here in the results. So here's smartsheet.com, and there's the security page. And you're going to be able to see what sort of security certifications they have. Oftentimes you have to scroll down to find them. Okay, so here we go to compliance. That's probably where we're going to see some of the certifications. So here it is. We have FedRAMP, we have FERPA, there's HIPAA. Right? I don't even know what GLBA is. They're PCI compliant, which means you can store credit card payment information in here, right? PCI compliant. And there's your accounting SOC certifications, right? So they have security protocols. They've been audited for this to confirm that they're secure. Now, as the head of security at Smartsheet that I talked to years ago pointed out to me very directly, the security that they have is still limited to what they can control. If users are sloppy with their passwords, there's nothing Smartsheet can do about that, right? So that's always something important to keep in mind. And when you're using these apps, you should make sure that there are very clear policies with your employees and also with your clients about how they manage passwords. Use LastPass. Use a LastPass generated password for something like this. It's just to make it as secure as you could possibly make it, right?
So I got the row 2 request now.
Okay,
It's just a delay.
So, okay, good. So yeah, there's just a delay. It takes a minute. Okay. So now what I want to do though is I want Greg to keep getting notified about this basically until it's been marked completed, right? I want to annoy him to the point where he's like compelled to just do what I'm asking him to do here. So that's where we're going to get a little more sophisticated with the automations, right? So he got the notification immediately when we assigned it to him. Okay, let's manage workflows. And I'm going to see if I think I can just add something to this one, right? So yeah. So we're going to add an action. Let's say request an update. Right? We're going to send it to whoever it's assigned to. Okay. Over here, we're going to add a condition where the due date, we want to send them a notification a week before the due date, right? So where the due date is, not just in the future. If we do it in the future, he will get a notification every single day until the due date, right? What I'm trying to do is say here in the next 7 days, right? So when the due date is in the next 7 days, request an update. right? So this is where it starts getting very slick because I can create these kind of notifications centered around different important dates, right? What I also want to do is I want to add another condition.
Can the client opt out of the notifications? Because like I have some clients that like you can't win with them, right? Like some clients are like, you didn't notify me enough, and some clients are like, you're notifying me too much.
Mm-hmm.
I want it turned off. Can clients like self-serve say like, I don't want to be notified about this?
I think they can. I think legally Smartsheet's required to give them that option. But what I
Okay.
would say to that client is if you're not willing to work with me on this stuff, then I can't help you. I can't guarantee things will get done on time. I can't guarantee they'll get done at all. In other words, you're paying me. I assume you want to cooperate with me. Why are you trying to make it difficult? Like I'm just trying to set up a process to make sure that I have what
Right.
I need so that I can do the job you hired me to do, right? And at a
Right.
certain point, you may want to consider whether or not that's a client that's worth working with because you have to wonder, are they not going out of their way to make your life more difficult just so they can say, see, you didn't do your job, right?
Right. Right.
So, I mean, I get the concern, but I guess my answer to that would be, all right, well, I don't want to stop the notifications because I'm concerned that I won't get what I need and I won't be able to get the job done, but maybe we can reduce the frequency, right?
Right.
Or maybe you can just give me what I need, or better yet, if you really want to eliminate notifications, then give me the logins that I need so I can get it myself, right?
Right. Right.
So my strategy with these conversations with clients is to sort of pin them against the wall in a matter of speaking and say, either you're going to give me what I want or you're going to give me the ability to get what I want without you getting in the way, right?
Right. Like the notifications will get turned off as soon as you give me what you want, what I want.
Exactly.
Right. Okay,
Exactly.
yeah.
And that's the condition we're about to put in, which is I want to say if the completed date, right, is basically not blank, right? If it is a date, actually is not a date or does not really what I want is if it's blank, then check the next condition, right? So there it is. That's what I was looking for. So if the completed date is blank, go forward, right? And here's what it does if it's not blank. So if it's not blank, I'm not gonna do anything. I'm gonna tell it not to do anything, right? So by simply not filling anything in here. But here's where you can start creating a tree of logic in terms of what to do and under what circumstances, right? So basically, as soon as it gets marked blank, it's not going to go any further because if it is blank, it's going to go forward. So the alternative, if it's not blank, it's going to look over here for what to do, and there's going to be nothing to do. Okay, everybody understand that logic? Because I know it can be a little confusing.
Now I'm assuming once you've set this up for one client, you can just copy it for.
Yeah, not only
Okay.
that, you can basically take that whole Smartsheet project, save it as a template, and then reuse that template anytime for any client.
Okay.
And you can as you're saving the template, you can choose whether or not to save the data that's in the project in the template. And even if you do, when you go to use the template, you can choose whether or not you want to carry the data forward or just use the template, right?
Right.
So you have a lot of flexibility with Smartsheet in terms of how you can do that, right? But this I love because this is when I need information from a client, and again, the use case we're talking about here is where the client doesn't want to give us the access that we need to get it ourselves, right? That's always my first go-to route is just give me the login so I don't have to be, so I don't have to be slowed down by my own clients because they'll slow me down. They'll, with the best of intentions, say, oh, I'll get you what you need, right? And we've talked about this a lot in 97 and Up recently. What I've done in the past with these kinds of clients who don't want to give me the access so I can get it myself, I stipulate in the agreement that if I don't have what I need on the scheduled day and time that I've scheduled to do their work, it's a week delay until I'll work on it again, and that's assuming I've gotten it by then. Right? In other words, I have a set day and time I'm going to work on your stuff. If I don't have what I need, I'm not going to make room in my schedule to make up for your deficiency in getting me what I needed. You're just going to have to wait another week before that gets handled, right? So if the client is going to make it sort of difficult for me to get what I need, then I, in a sense, throw it back on them and say, that's fine, but I'm not, in other words, I'm not going to jump through hoops because you didn't get me what I needed when you're insisting on setting it up that way. Right?
Right.
In one case, I even went as far as to tell the client if I didn't have what I needed at the day and time that I needed it, it was going to be a $150 charge. That was my way of making sure. But guess what happened? So the client would give me files that I needed, but he would give me duplicates of things I already had and missing things that I needed.
Right. Yeah.
And then it's, well, I gave you what you needed. No, you didn't. You gave me stuff I didn't need because I already had it. That client didn't last very long. So, and that's the thing to keep in mind, I think, Jennifer, going back to, you know, kind of your question and comment, because I get that. I've had the same experiences with clients. At a certain point, we have to kind of ask ourselves and our clients, like, are you here to cooperate with me? Like, you hired me to do a job. Let's work together. If we can't work together, then I can't help you, right?
Right.
So this is based on when the due date is in the next 7 days, as I've defined it, then send an update request, okay? Let me see if I can change, because when I just do here's the advanced options. So in the advanced options, when it's sending that update request to Greg, I can choose what to display in that update request, which is nice because if there's a column that includes sensitive information, I don't necessarily want that showing up in the email in the client's inbox, right? So I may just want the item needed, right? Maybe just that, and maybe the due date. And assign to, right? So in those advanced options, I can, I can establish what actually shows up in that update request. Then the email is going to come in with a link to click on that will take him right into that row's information so that he can do whatever I need him to do, whether it's attach something or comment with the login information, you know, whatever that might be. Okay, and then what I'm going to want to do is let's add another condition. That again, I wonder if I can just duplicate the previous one. No. So I want to do another condition that basically says, as long as it's not completed, keep going, right? So where completed date is blank. Okay, and then we're going to add another action. Okay, and let's just do another update request. And again, we're going to send it to the assigned to party. Okay, but this is, then we're going to do another condition in between based on the date. I want this one to go a day before the due date, right? So add a condition where the due date is tomorrow. Let's see if tomorrow is an option. If not, it's in like 1 day in the future, right? Is in the next 1 day. That's how we have to do it, right? So if the completed date is blank, go forward. If not, don't do anything, right? And if the due date is in the next 1 day, then we're going to request another update, right? And we're going to customize this message that says, hey, you've got 1 day. You had one thing to do. Get me this data. Just do it. Save. So now I've got a system set up where as soon as I create a row in this project, and as soon as I assign it to somebody, it's going to send them a notification immediately. It'll get it within a few minutes, right? And then it's going to send them a notification a week before the due date, which in this case would also be today. It's going to send them a notification a day before the due date, right? And then, of course, you've got the picture, I think, by now. We could add in more automations that basically say, if the due date is in the past, right, by a day, by 5 days, we can sort of escalate the intensity of the alerts based on, again, based on the fact that it's not completed, right? Because as long as this is blank, those conditions will let the automation go forward, right? And then once I put a date in here, based on those conditions I set up in the automation, it's just going to stop. It's not going to do anything more once I mark something completed in here. So it's only going to send those reminders if it hasn't been marked completed yet, right? I'm looking in the chat and stuff. I don't see any questions. Either everybody's really tired or really fascinated or really bored. I don't know. So quiet.
Fascinated.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm glad that's the answer. Thank you for telling me what I wanted to hear, Alexa. Okay, Cool. Then I will continue. But you get the idea. This makes life very easy in terms of, again, it's all about automation, right? Automation to simplify our lives. So I know I don't have to worry and wake up every day and panic and go, what do I need to follow up on? I'm working on client X today. Do I have everything I need? I can go here and check, because then the next thing I can do, and this is standard Smartsheet stuff, is I can filter this whole thing on anything where the completed date is blank, right? So not completed. And by the way, I can share this filter so others can use it so they don't have to sort of reinvent the wheel. I always check off include parent rows. It doesn't apply here, but this way, if there are any, otherwise I don't have context for when something is a subtask of something. So I always check that off. I click apply. And now if I mark this one complete, let's say I say this one got done today, and save. And then I just have to kind of refresh the view. So I'll turn the filter off and then turn it back on. And of course, the row that's been completed goes away, right? So these filters are basically like running reports. From here, you see not complete is the one I created. I can edit it. I can, I don't know what that means. I can create a new filter based on it, and I can turn it off, right? So now I can, again, manage things very nicely because I have a filter that shows me everything that's not completed yet. I could take that further and say, show me everything that's not completed where the due date is in the past, right? So what does that look like? Let me go back into filters, right? Let's go. We'll just add due date is in the past. Apply. Filter off. I don't know why this got included in that, because it shouldn't have, because the due date is definitely in the future. So let's just test my logic. I may have done something wrong. Oh, they match all conditions, right? So we want to show the rows that match at least one condition. Actually, no, I take that back. I want this report to show me only things where the completed date is blank and the due date is in the past. So the fact that it eliminated them all was absolutely proper, right? That was correct. If let's add in a new task where the due date is in fact in the past. So I'll say do this thing, okay? And let's just say the request date had been on the 1st, and let's say the due date had also been earlier on the 3rd, right? And I'm going to assign this to Greg again because he's the only one I have to assign things to right now. Sorry, Greg. I hope I'm not overwhelming you.
It's all good.
All right, so now if I do my not completed, which is really not completed and past due, it's going to show me just this one because it meets all the criteria, right? So between the automations and the filters, I can, I can sort of rest easy knowing that I have a system for managing what needs to get done still, right? And so you can see, going back to the beginning of the hour, what we were talking about, how, again, Smartsheet requires a little bit of more setup. It's some assembly required, right? But look what you can do with it, right? You can do this stuff with ClickUp too. You can even do custom date-based fields in ClickUp, so you can build it out. ClickUp by default comes with where each task has a due date. But you can add other custom fields that are date-based, so you can have a request date, a due date, and a completed date, just like this does, right? This might actually be a little easier to customize when it comes to that kind of stuff. And you can create reports in ClickUp. So again, before somebody else says it, yes, you can do this with other projects. I'm not saying that Smartsheet's the only way to do this. I'm saying that Smartsheet is a really good way to do this, right?
So one thing that I'm noticing, being the recipient of this, is that my view, when I click on do this thing, it shows everything, not just the stuff that hasn't been completed. So I can envision this if we, get 25.
Well, in your view, it looks like you have the not completed filter, or you're saying it didn't take you over like that. Or you're on your mobile? Your background is...
Yeah. Yeah, let me turn that off for a second.
So those little tiny icons in the beginning there, does that show that Greg attached something and made a comment?
Yes, if you see that little comment box to the left of the credit card statement logins, that means that there's a comment there. And the little paperclip that's next to the bank statement logins indicates that there's an attachment on that one. Greg, let me stop the sharing so that now hold your phone up so we can see that a little better.
Hang on, I got somebody calling me. Hang on.
Just so, Ant, bring them onto the call.
Hi, it's Greg.
It's probably
Hey,
Matthew.
Vanessa, I need about a half hour, okay? Okay. Thank you. All right, bye-bye. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
That was real life. So we were going back to the Smartsheet. Actually,
Yeah, I just want to.
let me just share my screen.
There you go. But the limitation on what shows up should have been based on the email that you got, right? Once you click over, I think you will see everything. But I think what you're saying is that when you click over, you would want to be able to somehow see only. Okay, so here, it showed you all the things that changed, and it highlights them in yellow. So I gave you the item needed, the request date, due date, and the assigned to, right? And then you click there, and that takes you right over.
See, it shows everything. Now
Yeah,
I
it
can
does show
manually
everything.
go in and turn the filter on that you've given me access to.
Right.
But by default, I'm just
Right.
playing
So
devil's
if I'm
advocate here. Our client has a list of 70 items on their to-do
Right.
list.
See, I know if I do a straight request, update request, then well, let me see something. Let me look at the automation for a second. I want to check something, how I did it here. So the first thing that you get is actually just an alert. I believe that the second thing that you get, which is actually in the form specifically of a request of an update request, the update request will include it will take you to only the row that we're requesting an update for. I think the
Not
alert.
according to this is the you've got a job to do.
Right. That's here, let me share my screen.
That's the automation.
Right. But let me show you the difference on my screen. So on my screen, the first thing I told it to do, which is what happens when it's initially assigned, is it sends you that you've got a job to do. And this is, let me go back here. So it's not an update request. It's just sending you an alert. Right? Now, the way what I could do is I could change this, right? I could change it and say, I could make it an update request instead of an alert. Okay, so let's change the action and say request an update. Everything else is the same. It's going to go to whoever it's assigned to. And I'm going to save this and I'm going to add a new item. And let's see if it looks different. And this is cool because this is important to understand and analyze. What's the difference in behavior between these subtle little differences between an alert versus an actual request for an update, right? So now this ... Okay, we'll put in today's date and we'll say it's due on Monday, right? And I'll assign it to Greg and then I'll save it. And so now, Greg, let's go ahead and have you share your screen once you're ready to with the email that you get. And then we'll see, let's check out the workflow. So now this is all, there it is, open update form. Boom. So this takes you into a screen that's just meant to update that one thing. You can upload files. You see how slick that is? So now, given what we've just seen, I'd probably go on the side of just doing a request for an update rather than just a general alert. Although, again, letting somebody know that something's been assigned to them, maybe I want them to see everything because while they're there, maybe I want them to see all the things that have been assigned to them that maybe aren't done yet. The other thing goes back to what I mentioned earlier too, which is before I implement a system like this with a client, I'm going to want to get on a Zoom with them and train them on it and make sure they understand how this all works. And I'll probably teach them how to use the filters so that they can quickly chisel it down to what's been assigned to them and what hasn't yet been completed, right? So that's where I would say it's always going to be important to plan on training your clients on how to use these systems with you, right? So now I'm going to show you my screen because I'll show you what Smartsheet does. That's pretty smart. So notice here, it gives me this little refresh icon next to the title of the project. So that's because Greg made a change and it's not reflected here yet. So when I click that, now I can see that it looks like he wrote hi in a comment, and he also included an attachment here, which happens to be a JPEG image. And once I've got an attachment, let's say that was like a bank statement or something, I can easily download it and store it in Google Drive or wherever it is that I prefer to store these kind of documents.
It's just a client logo. You can.
No, I know, but I figured it was something like that. But you know, again, the point is I can use this just as a sort of repository for capturing the data. I don't know that I would want to use this as my permanent like reference library of documents. Like this isn't where I'd want to go to track down their bank statements. I would probably want to download these to Google Drive or something. Or I can probably create a Zap that says anytime there's a new record in this Smartsheet project with an attachment, save it in a Google Drive folder. Right? So now I can actually bring Zapier into the mix and further automate this so that the point is I want to minimize the number of times I have to touch anything, right? And so if I now add Zapier in and say whenever, and obviously I'm going to create a Zap specific to that customer. So I'm going to say anytime they add something to a Smartsheet project with an attachment, save that attachment, and I'll specify a Google Drive folder where, maybe I'll call it inbox, which is what I do when I have clients uploading directly to Google Drive with me. I'll do the same thing, but have Zapier dump the attachment in there. And I'll get the notification that they've updated my row, because that's the other thing. I don't know if you noticed, if I go to manage workflows, by default, over here, there's automatically something where I get an alert whenever an assigned row changes. Let's edit this. So when any field changes, right now it's set to alert assigned to. What I want to do is change this to maybe everyone in the shared sheet, or I can have it just go specifically to me.
In
Right, so
thinking
this way,
about the rows and having clients uploading stuff, is there limitations within Smartsheet as far as how much storage you can have in there?
No, not once you've got a paid account. As far as I know, the storage is unlimited. And keep in mind, we're not asking them to upload video files. They're mostly going to be like PDFs, which are very small in size. But I imagine if at some point you hit some kind of a bandwidth or storage limit, you'd get a notification from Smartsheet. But I've never heard of a case like that where somebody that I know of has, right? But you can certainly look at the plans in your Smartsheet account to see. Let's go to account admin here, plan and billing. Oh, there's a 300 gigabyte storage limit. And I'm using 250 megabytes out of 300 gigabytes. So it's going to be a while before you hit a limit like that, and then you can always mitigate that by, first of all, one thing I learned from somebody at Smartsheet is let's say you have a client walk away. You don't want to lose the data, but you don't want it counting towards your limits. You can save any project as a template. Once you do that, and you can include the data. So when I say save this as a template, Jennifer, this goes back to what you asked earlier, right? I can over here choose to save the automated workflow and alert options. I can even include the specific recipients and permission settings, right? Data and formatting. So I can include all the data when I save the template. Once I do that, it's going to create the template, but then I have to remember to delete the original project. So when I do that, the template doesn't count towards any limits. I believe that's true of the file storage. It's definitely true of your sheet count, right? Because each plan, you have so many sheets that you can have before you have to go up to the next level. So just check that. But as we've just seen, I think it's going to be a long time before you reach any limits of storage like that, right? Because again, if you're mostly just gathering PDFs, those files are very small, especially bank statement PDFs. They take up like next to no space. But it is something, it's a good question, Greg, and it's definitely something to keep in mind. If for some reason the nature of your project with that client is such that you have large attachment file sizes, then maybe what you'd want to do in a case like this is download the file and then delete the attachment from Smartsheet and make a note to that effect, right? That the attachment was deleted to save space or something. Notice also when I'm in the comments here, I can actually add attachments directly to a comment. right? And that's the other thing that's really cool about Smartsheet for project management is we can have a whole discussion thread around, if you think of each row as a task, we can have a whole discussion thread around that. Okay. Now, the other thing I want to show you, actually, the time went by a lot faster than I had thought. But the other thing I want to show you that I mentioned at the beginning that's really cool for this, and I just set this up with a client, but I can't show you this tab because this is the actual client stuff. But I'm going to show you the comparable setup. A while back, we did a Zoom, actually, comparing Airtable and ClickUp for the purpose of tracking like subscriptions that you have, right? And so what I want to propose that you can do here is, let me go back home and make sure that I'm back here in the workspace. Let me see if I already have something like this. No, so we're going to create a new grid, and we're going to call this recurring and auto pay. And I'm going to build this fast because I don't necessarily expect you need to learn how to create the columns. I just want to show you what you can do. So this first thing is going to be the vendor or payee. Okay. Then we'll have, in this client's case, he had more than one company. So I created a drop down for company, right? And we had company 1 and 2. Okay. And then the next column is the frequency. And that's also going to be a drop down because we have monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, annually. Obviously, you can add in any other choices that you might need, and we can restrict it to only those drop-down values just to make sure nobody's messing with our data. All right, status, another drop-down, auto pay, and manual. Okay, then we have next renewal date. And that's, of course, a
I actually
date.
kind of have this in the reference sheet.
Yeah, it is kind of built out in the generic reference sheet. And certainly I would incorporate this into that if you're doing that. And then we have the amount actual or estimated, right? Because some things the amount might vary. And that's going to be just a generic text or number, okay? Now, what I can do is I can take something like, I'm just trying to think of a good example here. So let's say you have Zoom, okay? Goes to company 1, the frequency is monthly, the status is auto pay, right? That's just so I can quickly get a look. If something's on auto pay, I don't have to worry about making sure it gets paid because I know it's on auto pay, right? And the next renewal date is going to be the next day that it's going to get charged. So let's say I get charged on, the last, or the 28th, let's just call it, right? And let's say the amount is $85, whatever it is, right? And by the way, we can format this, of course, for currency. But now, based on what we've already seen this morning, you can see where I'm going to create automations that let me know a week before the renewal date. This gives me an alert so I can be notified of the fact that maybe I want to cancel this subscription if I don't think I need it anymore. Because what I found when I set this up for this client, he's already saved almost $1,000 annually in fees because I had his bookkeeper actually populated after I built the project. And he just identified things that he doesn't need. And it's little things, $33 a month, that we tend to ignore when we see it in our banking because they look like small amounts, so we don't think twice about it. But the first thing he canceled saved him $400 a year. The next thing he canceled saved him like another $600. And he's now identified a third thing that he missed, but he's going to cancel it going forward. So you can use these automations to make sure that you're alerted to the fact. So the way I have his set up, he gets an alert a week before the renewal date, a day before the renewal date, and then once it renews, somebody has to go in here and update this, right, to the next month. So it would have to be updated to March 28th once we get past February. So if it's a day past the renewal date, then an alert goes out letting you know, hey, you need to update the renewal date on this. It's past its renewal date, right? So we kind of cover all sides of it. We give you an opportunity a week before to cancel, a day before, just in case you missed the week reminder. And then after it goes past the renewal date, you start getting reminders letting you know that you need to update it for next month, right? And what it also does is it forces us to put eyes on this kind of information on a regular basis, because it's the kind of stuff that's easy to ignore, you know? And so it's cool. My client is ecstatic because I've now saved him $1,000 a year so far, and it'll probably be more before we're done, right? So this is a really good use case for, you know, how to set something like this up. The downside of doing this in Smartsheet is there's no ability to set up alerts or reminders. You'd have to use Zapier to do that, and even that might be a bit clunky. ClickUp, you could do, you know, the alerts and reminders, because ClickUp is going to notify you based on the due date. But I don't think, Greg, we can't do custom alerts in ClickUp. Like, I couldn't go in there and say, hey, send me a reminder a day after the renewal date, could I?
I was coughing through half of what you
Oh,
said.
I was saying, is there a way in ClickUp to create like customized reminders that would say, let's say after this next renewal date, assuming I created a custom date field in ClickUp, could I create any logic that says, remind me a day or a week after this next renewal date goes by?
Yeah, I mean, you could set it up for the recurring, and then you would get a...
Recurring is going to be based on the due date, so you would just use the due date as the next renewal date. Okay, yeah, and then you do get reminders when things are past due. But I don't think you can control them. Like, you can't, are there settings where, I forget if there's settings where you can control the frequency or the timing of it. I think, no, I think I just get an email digest with everything that's sort of past due from ClickUp in the morning.
Well, it depends on what you're configuring, because your tasks themselves have watchers on them. And if you're a watcher on that, you'll get an individual notification, unless you've
Right.
turned those off, I guess.
Right.
That the recurrence is happening.
Right. Okay.
I think we might be talking about two different things.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, so I mean, the bottom line, what I'm getting at is that with Smartsheet, as you've seen, you can clearly and easily customize, you know, a lot in terms of the notifications, when they go out, why they go out, when they don't go out, that kind of thing.
And we can look in here. Let me show you this too. This is kind of cool.
So you have a Smartsheet embedded in
I
ClickUp,
embed
which
the
is really
Smartsheet
cool.
right
Yep.
within here, and then I can go through and update everything.
What's interesting though with the embed, and I noticed this because that same client, I have it set up in Teams as an embed, right? But if go back into the embed for a second, notice you don't have the menus in the embed for file automation and forms. To get that, you have to go directly into Smartsheet. It's the one thing that for some reason drops off in the embed. Click the ellipsis next to the project name at the top in the blue. Maybe that gives you a way to reveal it. No. So that's the only downside of the embed. But if you don't need that, which you may not in most cases, you can, you know, like Greg is showing you. So you can build out a project like this in Smartsheet, but if ClickUp is sort of your main project management tool, you can embed it right in here so you get the best of both worlds, quite literally.
So here is the recurring thing that I have here. So I have this set up to recur weekly in this case, because this is...
And does it recur based on marking it complete, or does it just recur no matter what?
It recurs whenever it's closed.
When closed, so when you mark it complete.
Yeah. You even have this new option here, marks it when it's done, so you could have multiple different done statuses.
Right, right.
It doesn't have to be marked as closed.
Gotcha. Very cool. So everybody's been really quiet. I hope it's because of what Alexa said earlier. But if you do have questions or feedback, now is the time to do it.
Do you still use this to collect uncategorized expense information?
We do, actually. For uncategorized, we absolutely do. We create the uncategorized report in QuickBooks Online, and we export it, and then we format the columns in Smartsheet to conform perfectly to exactly how it exports, because that makes it easy to copy and paste whenever we need to update it.
So you can copy a spreadsheet into...
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yep. Very cool. The only thing to keep in mind is the formatting the way it exports from QuickBooks is a little clunky. It's not so linear like the Smartsheet is. So there may be a little bit of cleanup we have to do before we're actually ready to copy and paste. But again, the idea is to minimize friction by, so we customize the report exactly. I might eliminate some of the columns that I don't feel I need, like, how it has that adjustment column that shows up a lot. I get rid of that. I don't need it, And so we save the uncategorized transactions report in QuickBooks Online as a custom report, formatted to minimize the friction from getting it from that form into Smartsheet. And I saw earlier this week, somebody posted in our 97 and Up Slack that Zapier has added some more QuickBooks Online automations or integrations.
Yeah,
I haven't had a chance to look at
It was the ability to update
customers, was it?
customer records based on changes that happen in other fields, or vice versa. If you update something in QuickBooks, for example, it can go out and update your CRM.
Right. So what I'm dying for, and my friends at Zapier, if you hear this, please listen, is a Zapier integration that I can set up that says, for example, when I assign the category uncategorized expenses, add that information to a row in Smartsheet, right, or Airtable or Google Sheets or whatever, but where I can then map the items, like how, what pieces of information from that transaction do I want. But the trigger would be that an expense in QuickBooks Online has been assigned to uncategorized expenses, and another one obviously for uncategorized income. Or for that matter, more generically, I can specify the account that's assigned that triggers the zap, and then I can map the information and say, give me the payee, give me the date, give me the amount, all the information that I would want to grab from QBO, and then I would save me the trouble of even having to export and copy and paste, right? I can just, and then imagine Smartsheet is configured to alert the client and send an update request. Because I love the way that update request looks, right, Greg? Where you're taken into that form to fill out. So it's very specific. This is what I need.
So I had at one point something set up, I had thought for that.
While you're looking for that, Client Hub just added a really cool new feature that connects the uncategorized column in QuickBooks and puts all the information that's on the bank feed in, and then it has a pull down and the client just chooses the category.
That's
and it
nice.
Updates back into QuickBooks.
That's beautiful.
So there is a zap that you can do when a new expense is created, and presumably you could filter that, and they would add a row to Smartsheet.
For a particular account. All right, so we'll have to play with that. Because I think that's one of the biggest pain points that we still encounter is how to get uncategorized transactions categorized with the client, where we just don't know, what something is for.
Exactly.
So if we can get that part sort of nailed down and substantially automated, then that's gonna free up a lot of time for a lot of us. And my goal with this, and hopefully yours too, at least in part, is to automate the crap out of this stuff so that I can spend more time focused on real value-added services like analyzing the numbers and being able to advise the client on what might be working, what might not be working, and all that strategic advisory stuff that we frequently talk about, where I can get paid more, work fewer hours, because the nature of what I'm doing is just a much higher value, because I'm not sitting there coding transactions anymore. I'm actually analyzing them and using that information to provide valuable guidance to my clients. I'm going from, in a sense, bookkeeper to CFO. We have the technology these days that, in the past you might have said, well, the bookkeeper is not qualified to be a CFO. Now I disagree. I think any bookkeeper can learn to do all the CFO stuff that we need to learn how to do, especially with the tools that we have at our disposal. Then it's just a question of understanding and learning actually how to analyze the financial statements, which, by the way, shameless self-promotion, I do have a course called Business Valuation on my website, so you can actually learn exactly what I'm talking about if you don't already know. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.